Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we show you how to play miniatures wargaming on a budget, and it is another edition of Age of the Realms, this time Battle Report number 8. So it is I, Commander CheapSkate, with my Wild Hunt, which is my Sylvaneth army, versus King Khalifa with the last charge of the Reichsmarschall, which is the Empire army. So we're going to try out to see what happens when my Forest Spirit Wargrove goes against a Brotherhood of Knights Battalion. Let's see how that goes along. Alright, so let's go over my army list real fast. This is the Wild Hunt. It is a Sylvaneth Forest Spirit Wargrove Battalion. I have Durthu, Coadil the Tree Man, Ancient, Sternbark, who is a Tree Man, Dryka the Branch Wraith, Briar Maven the Branch Wraith, Sayobana the Shadows, who is another Branch Wraith, the Four Shamblers, which are 6 Treekin, the Court of Tides, with 20 Dryads, the Court of Summers, which is 15 Dryads, and finally the Court of Winters, which also has 15 Dryads. And that pretty much makes up my Forest Spirit Wargrove Battalion. Alright, so let's go to my opponent's army list. This is the last charge of the Reichsmarschall. It is a Empire Brotherhood of Knights Battalion. Leading that, we have Kurt Helborg, Ludwig Schwarzhelm, Tybalt Kraus, the Vagrant Knight, which is the Grand Master, and I believe that's the general for his army as well. He's also bringing Luther Haas, Victor Helsbrad, who is Empire Battle Wizard of Light, who is mounted on a warhorse. After that, we have our units, which are the Reichsguard, which are 20 Reichsguard Knights with full command, the Vagrant Brotherhood, which are 20 Inner Circle Knights with full command, the Knights of the Blazing Sun, which is 10 Empire Knights with full command, and the Knights of the Panther, which is 10 Empire Knights with full command. So that's right, ladies and gentlemen, I am taking on a fully mounted Brotherhood of Knights army. So let's see how this battle report goes on this one.
Assemble the army!
Alright, so let's talk about the deployment real fast. If you notice, the game table is a little bit different. The reason why is because we're playing at my buddy King Khalifa's house at his place. So because of this is like his office / hobby room, so we're playing there for this battle report. But I brought my terrain and stuff. So you can see there, this is basically the layout of the battle. On the left-hand side there, we kind of went with is my opponent's army. He has his entire unit of knights. As you can see there, he has his unit of Panther Knights, which are the far left, followed by his Inner Circle Knights, which has Luther Haas, as well as his Grand Master in there as well. Then to the right of that, you have his Reichsguard Knights, which has both Ludwig Schwarzhelm, I believe his name, as well as Kurt Helborg. On the far right-hand side, you got his Knights of the Blazing Sun as well. We have some proxies in there with some Undead Knights because he didn't have enough Knights to have in a full-fledged army, but that's where he's located at. And he decided to go with a diagonal-style deployment. I'm on the bottom of the screen there. As you can see there, I got my 6 Forest Shamblers, which is my Treekin, my 3 Branch Wraiths, as well as Durthu. And basically, my entire goal is to make him come to me. He's cavalry. He has to advance. I don't have to. The only problem I got to worry about is if he charges, because when he does, he gets bonuses. So with deployment out of the way, let's move on to turn number 1. Alright, so turn number 1 goes to me for the Sylvaneth army. As you can pretty much see, I didn't really do much of anything besides just use my command ability. Durthu uses Tree Sing ability to bring up another Sylvaneth Wild right there in the middle of the board. That way I can kind of deploy my units inside there. Also get some backup for some of my guys when the time comes in order to engage in close combat. Since I'm out of range of shooting, there's no close combat or charging. Basically, that makes up turn number 1. Pretty uneventful. So with that, we go on to my opponent's turn. Alright, so this is command phase for turn number 1 of the Empire. As you can see there, is basically his Grand Master decided to use his command ability, gave us the ability to run as well as charge all 3 of his knight units. He has it for the Knights of the Path to the left, for his Inner Circle Knights, as well as for his Reichsguard Knights there at the side, as well as his command characters. So because they uses that for his command ability, so that way they can charge up. And at the same time, his Battle Wizard basically uses his Light of Battle spell, I think is what it is called. Basically gives you the +1 bravery for all of his units. So basically gave it to both his Knights of the Blazing Sun there, which is right side where his Knights his Wizards located, as well as the Reichsguard Knights as well. So that is the command phase for my enemy's turn. With command over, he basically goes in the movement phase. As you can see, he both ran his cavalry forward as quickly as possible. And this is where I realized I might have made a tactical error, decided to take on this unit without moving any of my guys into play. As you can see there, just a tidal wave of men on horses just charges right towards me. Basically, his Panthers of the his Knights of the Panther and his Knights of the Blazing Sun kind of position themselves into my flanks in order to fully envelop me, which is going to be kind of rough as well. At the same time, basically, his 2 huge units of Inner Circle Knights and Reichsguard Knights with characters basically gets within charge range of my guys and prepares to roll off in the charge. And so, yeah, if those guys charge on my dudes, it's going to be bad because they get bonuses to attack as well as to wound. So, not looking too good. Oh, and they also get bonuses for damage as well. So, not looking too good for the home team. Now this photo also makes up the rest of the turn as well, because when it came to the charge phase, my opponent failed miserably on his charges. Starting from the right and moving leftwards, go talk about them. First of all, his Knights of the Panther, which the guys on the right, they couldn't charge because they ran the previous turn, the movement phase, so because of they can't do it because they're outside the bubble for both running and charging. However, when it came to the Reiksguard, his characters, basically he rolled 2d6, he got a 1. So a 1 and a 1, so a total of 2. Even with +2 with his hornblowers, they weren't going to go anywhere, so basically he kept it. I asked him if he wanted to set his characters for it, but he didn't want to do that either, so he kept his characters as units, so it kind of held him back on that part. Same thing with his Inner Circle Knights. When he rolled his dice to get to the charge range, I think he rolled a 4 or 5, and even with a +2, he wasn't within charging distance or close enough engagement or to hit my Treeman or my Treekin either. So because of that, his guys stay put too. He decides not to charge his characters either. And then to make this the final coup de grace, which is his unit of the Knight of the Blazing Sun on the left-hand side, he rolls like an 11, gets a +2 in order to get his charge distance, but because of that, he's an inch short of hitting Durthu, so because of that, his charge fails as well. So that pretty much makes my opponent's turn, and with that being done with, we move on to turn number 2. And to make matters worse, I win the initiative, so I get to go next on turn number 2. So because of that, basically I use my command ability. As you can see right behind the Mark's Reiksguard, as well as the Inner Circle Knight to the back, I bring up 2 more clumps of trees from my Sylvaneth Wildwood over there. So as you can probably guess, I'm going to drop some guys in those forests right there on the back in order to get him. So that worked out pretty well for me as well. So that is the command ability picture for Durthu. And because those Knights of the Panther kind of worry me, I basically use my Rouse to War for my spell from one of my branch wraiths. She brings up about 5 of those, no, sorry, not 5. Yeah, 6. So she brings up 6 dryads, which I put right over the right-hand side in order to intercept those charging knights as well. I also cast Mystic Shielding onto my unit of Treekin as well, in order to give them a +1 on their save as well. And to add insult to injury, my last branch wraith casts Arcane Bolt at that unit of Knights of the Panther, and basically put 1 single wound on those guys as well. So, unfortunately for me, Knights cap 2 wounds apiece, so because of that, I get 1 wound, but all in all, pretty successful command phase. And with command over, we go directly to the movement phase. And as you can see in this picture, basically I just brought everything in. The forest just came alive with everything that I could summon up with my entire army and started placing wherever I needed to in order to intercept my opponent. And rightfully so, because those knights are going to be charging at me here pretty soon if I don't charge them first. So that's pretty much what my plan is going to be. As you can see, that my entire army is now assembled, and basically we're just going to be calling them in. Basically what I did is I went for kind of like a pincer attack. I have a wave of dryads as well as Treekin in the front of my branch wraiths with Coadel the Treeman giving magical support there in the center. And as you can see in the back there, I have deployed both Durthu. I teleported him with his walking along the Spirit Paths ability. I also teleported in Sternbark, my Treeman. I also just teleported my Court of Winters as well as the Court of Tides, which are my big units of 20 dryads and 15 dryads, and set them up in the forest behind the main lines. And basically I'm going to try to envelop my opponent in a double envelopment, trying to defeat him that way. So yeah, that's pretty much what it has with movement phase on this. As you can see in this picture, this is a close-up of my Treekin moving up to the center, as well as my Court of Summer basically getting teleported there on the left-hand side with Coadel leading support to kind of like act as the anvil for the charge of my enemy's units. As you can see in this picture, there's a picture of my Treekin basically lining up in the gap between the force there, trying to set the Reiksguard. I also got my Dryads on the right-hand side that I summoned up the last command phase and basically lined them up to set them up to charge into the front of the Knights of the Panther with the Wizard there on that right-hand flank. This is a close-up of Durthu as well as the Court of Winters, getting ready to charge the rear flank, the rear of the Inner Circle Knights there right in front of them. And here's a close-up of Sternbark as well as the Court of Tides getting ready to charge the back of those Reiksguards. So with those close-ups done, we're moving on to the shooting phase. As you can see in this picture, shooting was pretty much a wash for me. Durthu couldn't impact a single wound on any of those knights at all, even with the armor save, so because of that, he got nothing accomplished. And between Sternbark and Coadel, I only managed to plink off 2 Reiksguard knights. I mean, it's 4 wounds, which I guess is nothing to sneer at, but you know, I'm used to seeing better shooting out of these guys. But yeah, that's shooting. And with shooting out of the way, we now go directly to the charge phase. As you can see in this picture, there has been some charges. Basically, I just unleashed my pincer attack on everything that I possibly could from the main battle lines of my enemy. Because, let's face it, when it comes to cavalry, it's always better if you charge cavalry instead of them charging you. It's been that way since Warhammer was basically created. Same thing with military tactics, I suppose. I mean, the cavalry don't stand a chance if they get charged by ranks of formed infantry. So basically, that's what I did, to send everything forward and basically close it in. And as you can see there, most of everything is pretty much engaged. So let's go to the zone close-up so that we can see exactly what happened. As you see in this picture, basically, I got that unit of Inner Circle Knights fully enveloped. I sent the Court of Summers as well as the Court of Winters to the front as well as the rear of that Information Knights. I also got Durthu kind of charged right there into the back of the Inner Circle Knights, so that way he can start unleashing his fury on that part. Basically, my goal is to have the Knights get targeted by my dryads and have Durthu basically, get his thing on, because that guy is a freaking beast when it comes to combat. So that's the close-up on this charge. As you can see in this picture, my Treekin as well as my Court of Ties charges that huge honking unit of Reiksguard Knights, the characters, and that's kind of cool, so that way I can get those counters to be put on that unit. Unfortunately, Sternbark failed his charge roll, so he wasn't able to make contact with the enemy unit, but that's okay. I'll take what I can get when it comes to that charge. So both major units of Knights are now fully involved, and that's always a positive for me. And as you can see in this picture, my unit of Dryads Rouse to War Dryads charge into the front of those Knights of the Panther of the Wizard and keep those guys occupied, so that they don't charge into my my branch wraiths. So yeah, that pretty much makes up the charge pictures for my phase, and with that we go on directly into the combat phase. So I start off the combat with Durthu, and between his swinging abilities for his massive Eldar sword, and because he's within 3 inches of a wall with force, he just chops that unit of Inner Circle Knights down. I think I killed something like 6. I think 6 or, yeah, I killed 6 of those Inner Circle Knights just all by my lonesome, so that was pretty freaking epic. I just mowed those dude downs with Durthu. And then when Durthu did his attack, he attacked against Luthor Hostage, that character's laying down. He uses Impaling Talons attack. Basically, I inflicted a wound on him. Basically, his 5 wounds dropped down to 4. When I rolled my d6, I rolled a perfect 6, so bam, Luthor Hostage is now dead. So that was pretty freaking epic for Durthu. I mean, man, I love that guy. Combat over here, my opponent decided to use his Reiksguards next. Basically, combat did not go well for him at all. It was pretty shocking how poorly those guys really did when it came to my Treekin, and vice versa. They managed to kill, not managed to kill, they only managed to put 1 wound onto one of my Treekin at best. I think it's because I got that armor save, and at the same time, however, I only managed to put on 4 wounds onto that unit of Reiksguard, killing 2 of those knights, and that was pretty much it. Combat between the Reiksguard and the Treekin has been really lackluster, and it was kind of like surprising to see that happened, so that's combat for this part of the combat phase. Combat on the right flank between the Panther and the Knights, Knights of the Panther, as well as my Rouse to War Dryads, is also lackluster as well. They managed to kill only 2 of my Dryads, 3 of my Dryads in the process. I managed to kill 1 of their Knights and then put another floating wound onto another Knight on that part. So that part was pretty cool, but other than that though, like I said, combat pretty lackluster. The only thing that was really cool so far has been Durthu just chopping through that unit of Inner Circle Knights. And then finally in this battle, we've finally seen some action. My Court of Tides basically unleashed an entire tidal wave of attacks, 40 attacks in all against that unit of Reiksguard Knights, and I managed to cut that unit in half. I killed something ridiculous amount, like something like 8 or 9 Knights, I think is what I ended up killing in the end. So it was pretty ridiculous on the part of my Dryads. Those guys are so good, especially when you have them attack in mass at a single target. They're pretty epic. So because of that, that Reiksguard unit is now cut in half, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. My opponent then decides to go back to his Knights of the Blazing Sun for combat, have them pile in there 3 inches towards Durthu. Once he gets them piled in, he decides to attack as well. Luckily for me, though, his attacks are basically bunk, and the reason why is because Durthu's within 3 inches of that force. He gets to add 1 to his save, so because of that, his save is now 2, and +4/+4 to wound for these guys, and to strike, as well as no rending. That ain't going to do a thing against Durthu, so Durthu basically weathers all their blows. And so with that combat out of the way, move on to my Dryads against that Inner Circle Knights unit. Alright, after the said and done with the combat between my Dryads as well as these Inner Circle Knights, as you can see that, the Inner Circle Knights have basically been cut in half by my Dryads, and my Dryads in the front right there, which is the Court of Summers, they also been cut in half as well. So it was pretty brutal combat on this side, but actually I'm pretty happy with the end result, because a lot more Knights died than my Dryads because of the amount of wounds that my guys did. So because of that, I'm pretty happy with the combat results. So with the combat out of the way, we now move on to the bottom number 2 for my opponent. And this is the part where I have to ask for forgiveness for you guys because I forgot to take all the photos for turn number 2 for the Empire. I just plumb forgot. I was having too much of a good time just watching my Sylvaneth and the Empire guys go at it. I forgot to completely take out my phone and take those photos. So once again, I apologize what happened. So basically on this next photo coming up, you're going to see what happened after turn 2 after the Empire when it came to the battle shock test. So yeah, sorry. As you can see in this photo, not much going on in terms of movement as well, because pretty much everything's pretty much bogged down in combat. Combat was basically very uneventful this last turn around. It was kind of like more of a grind than anything exciting. Basically, a few more knights died on both of my opponent's side, a few more of my dryads and treekin died on my side. So because of that, not much excitement going on. In fact, the only thing that we also forgot to do while we're doing the combat, when you see Durthu and the Knights of the Panther over there, Knights of the Blazing Sun over there on the left-hand side, we completely forgot about those guys when we're doing combat. There's alternating between opponent A and opponent B and back and forth choosing our own combat. So it does kind of bog down Age of Sigmar a little bit, in my opinion, going back and forth. I mean, I can see the validity in it. It makes you think and makes you do that kind of stuff. But if you're not careful, you lose track of stuff pretty easily. So unfortunately, that happens. So, but anyways, that's pretty much what it looks like after Battle Shock Test for the Empire, turn number 2. So with that, we go on to turn number 3. Alright, for turn number 3, we both roll off for initiative, and I barely get the initiative on that one. I rolled a 3 and my opponent rolls a 2. So because of that, we go directly to my command phase. You can see in this photo, right next to my dryads, what's the word they called? They're my branchways as well as Coedel, my tree man. Basically, Durthu summons up another Sylvaneth Wobbler over there next to the right-hand side to protect my dryads. I keep saying dryads. Dryka, as well as my other branch wraiths, as well as Coedil from a possible flank charge from those guys if they manage to kill off my last remaining 3 dryads there on the right-hand side. So because of that, I summon up another Sylvaneth Wildwood. So that is command for this photo. And this photo, I managed to cast Mystic Shielding again for one of my dryads. Not my dryads, my branch race cast Mystic Shielding on my treekin model, so they got that +1 to save as well. And I also used Rouse of War to summon up 12 more dryads out of that newly formed Sylvaneth Wildwood. They're on the right hand side, so now my 3 dryads have basically support coming their way. And then Coedil cast Wake the Woods, that's what it is. He cast that spell on those 3 bright green, bushy looking trees right next to Kurt Helborg and managed to inflict 2 mortal wounds on that guy, which is pretty epic on that part. So yeah, command phase was really, really effective for me. So at the end of command phase, we move directly on to the movement phase. As you can see in this photo, not much movement going on, really. Basically, the only guy that really moves is Coedil. Basically, he teleports himself from the forest that were near my dryads all the way to the other side of the board in order to get him set up for a rear charge into the back of those Knights of the Panther, which are on the right-hand side there. So that's pretty much the only movement that you see out of my army. Alright, as you can see in the shooting phase, I have both Coedil as well as Sternbark open up onto that wizard, who's the Wizard of Light, who's located with that unit of the Knights of the Panther. Basically, I have both those guys open fire on those guys, and I basically killed his wizard, which is pretty epic in my opinion. So, shooting phase is pretty good for me. Feeling pretty good about that part. So, with shooting down, we move directly into the charging phase. As you can see in this photo, I basically get that unit of the Knights of the Panther into a pincer attack as well. I charge in Sternbark. He makes his charge roll, runs to the rear of those Knights as well. And then also my Dryads I summoned up for Rouse of War. Those 12 guys also slam into the front of that unit of Knights as well. Unfortunately for me, Coedil didn't manage to get his rolls off all that well for his charging rolls. Basically, he rolled Snake Eyes, so because he was unable to charge anything, so basically Coedil has to sit there in the back while everybody else does the fighting, which I'm not really complaining so far, because so far the fighting is pretty much going my way, and I really can't complain about that. So yeah, ends up that's what's going on in this charge phase. And with charging out of the way, we go directly into combat. And as you can see in this combat, Durthu just wipes out that unit of Knights like it's nobody's business. Basically, he got 6 attacks again because of him being so close to the forest as well, so I got pretty lucky on the number of hits he got off. Basically, I scored, I think, 5 hits, and each one being 6 damage apiece for 30 wounds. These guys had no way of stopping that, so Durthu just slaughters them to a man and just basically takes them all apart. And once again, just demonstrating to me how important Durthu is to my army. Man, I love this guy. Too bad he wasn't this badass in 8th edition, because that would have been really cool. But anyways, enough about that. Move on to the rest of the combats. Combat on this side of the board went poorly for my opponent. He managed to almost wipe out my front unit of Dryads that charged in the front on the previous turns before, but unfortunately he got swarmed on by my guys. Basically cut down his models down to about 1/3 of their original size, and because of that, this unit's days are numbered. And so with battle shock tests coming and everything like that, they're not going to much of anything by the time this come around to combat is over with. So yeah, that's the picture for combat on this side of the board. As for the center lines, combat don't go so very well for my opponent. It does pretty well for me. Half of my tree can, however, get killed in the process, but in the process of doing that, I basically cut down that unit of Reichsguard down to about a quarter of its original size, so about 5 more figures are left in that unit. I managed to kill off Kurt Helborg and managed to finish him off as well as a lot of the other Reichsguard Knights in there as well. However, as a payout for doing that, that guy Ludwig Schwarzhelm, I think his name is, basically just kind of mows down and cuts about halfway through my Treekin unit as well, and managed to put 2 more wounds onto one of my remaining Treekins. So that part was pretty rough, but you know, that's just the way it is. That's the rules of the game, so they say. And in the far right rank, between Sternbark as well as my Dryads, I kill 8. Sorry, not 8. I kill 6 of those knights. Inflict 12 wounds on those bad boys. Only 2 more knights of those knights are left. So it was pretty brutal in that combat. But you know what? It was very, very worth it just watching those knights being crushed by my treatments. So it was pretty awesome that part. So that makes the last of the combat. And with that, we move on to my opponent's turn for turn number 3. So on turn number 3, King Khalifa, he basically looks at what's left of his army after these last 2 brutal rounds of combat and realizes that he does not have enough in order to finish the game, so basically he just surrenders. As you can see right behind, in the very far corner between those 2 towers on his deployment zone is where all of his dead knights are located at, and he realizes he has nothing left, so because of that, my opponent calls the game at this point. So you there, as you see, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much the board. As you can see, there's a lot of Sylvaneth left on this board, not so many Empire guys. So because of that, basically, I clearly won this battle because my opponent surrendered. So yeah, that pretty much rounds up for this battle report. With that, we can move on to the after-action report.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the after-action report. This is the part of the battle report where we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we play. So this is the after-action report for Age of the Realms, battle report number 8. It was I, Commander CheapSkate of my Wild Hunt Sylvaneth army versus King Khalifa of the last charge of the Reichsmarschall Empire army. And it ended up being a victory for yours truly. So let's go ahead and talk about why and what factors helped me out win this battle. Plain and simply, the only reason why I won this battle was because of bad dice rolling. Basically, that was the only thing. If King Khalifa hadn't failed his charges, this battle would have ended very, very differently. And the reason why is because all of his knights would have plowed right through my Treekin. They would have plowed right into my Dryads as well and gained those bonuses to hit as well as the number of attacks they needed. And they also would have killed my, my branch race when they got the chance to actually get into combat with them. So because of that, those failed dice roll, basically the only thing that saved me on this part. It bought me enough time in order to summon up more wildwoods, so that way I can engage my enemy into a pincer attack, and that was basically the only thing to do that. The ability to teleport behind my enemy's formation was the reason why I won this battle, and it is sheer epicness when it actually works out pretty well. So that part is always pretty awesome, like that part as well. As for my army, I like running 3 branch wraiths. It basically takes care of all my magical needs when I have that. Basically, I have Coadil casting whatever spells needed in order to be successful and offensive. I got 1 branch wraith to cast a Browse to War, which is helping me get more Dryads in the battlefield. I have another branch wraith that can summon up Mystic Shielding to protect my unit of Treekins that act as a suppressive element. And then, of course, I have 1 more Dryad to cast Mystic Bolt if I need to. So because of that, having the magic taking care of my branch wraith is really big, especially if I need to start using those healing spells if I have to for my treatment. I didn't really have to worry about that too much in this battle, but in case I ever need it, though, I have that. And lastly, of course, the most important thing to remember out of this battle is that when it comes to cavalry, when cavalry charges your army, it's always bad for you because cavalry always gains bonuses in Age of Sigmar for charging their opponents. However, if you yourself charges your enemy's cavalry before they get a chance to do that, basically it's going to end up being an epic win for you because they receive no bonuses whatsoever. In fact, it kind of hinders them a little bit and basically they start losing. So yeah, this was a great battle. I loved really playing against King Khalifa. I took on an all-mounted Empire army, which is kind of different. Never got to see that happen before. I will admit, though, the battle did kind of grindy a little bit there because you just felt like you're just kind of grinding through things because there was no real advantages for my opponent anymore. Same thing with me, so it did get kind of monotonous in that sense. But other than that, though, good opponent. I love playing him, like playing in his office, so it was pretty awesome. Looking forward to the next rematch against King Khalifa pretty soon. So yeah, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe to this battle reports. So long as you guys keep liking them, I'll keep making them. So with that, that is all for now. See you on the flip side.